Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. Today, we are unpacking one of life's most universal and uncomfortable experiences, which is rejection.
Yeah. And it's worth noting that we had to reject the first recording of this.
Thank you. I was like, do we mention that this is our second time doing this?
It's like we love this topic so much.
Oh, yeah, and the thing is, we were
Yeah.
having such fun because we recorded it together. You were in
Yeah.
town for the Go-Go's, and we were like, sweet, we recorded the one together when we were at the retreat, and then we're like, ooh, we'll do another one. And then for some reason, it did not record sound. The only thing I can imagine is I had mute pushed on my mic because we were using the same mic. But you know what? Everything happens as it should. So I'm sure this will be even better than it was the first time.
I'm gonna do one of those nuggets where I say, like, oh my God, that's another topic. Is we should do a whole topic about the Go-Go's and how fabulous they are in their 60s and how fun that was to see them together. Because
That was fun.
watching them ever since we saw them and like just this run they're on is just the coolest. They're so cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So whether it's being ghosted or turned down or passed over or told going in a different direction, rejection stings. That hurts. And yet it's something we all face over and over again. And I would argue it's a really important teacher.
Oh, no question. And what makes this so powerful to talk about is we're not just exploring the pain of rejection, which is real, but trying as we do to flip it a little bit and say, okay, you can have your feelings about it because it is painful, but what can it teach us? How can we shift our response so that once we have our feelings about it, we don't stay there. We don't think of rejection as like a dead end.
Yeah, right. And because it doesn't always mean failure. We heard that so much in our coaching training. Rejection isn't failure, it's feedback, right? Well, not rejection. They would say failure is feedback,
Yeah.
is not.
But when
Yeah,
you're feeling rejected, you're also feeling like you're failing. And so I
exactly.
do think it can be swapped out in some
Right.
ways. Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, it just often means redirection or a much needed wake up call to choose differently. It's like, oh, this isn't working how I thought. What else do I need to learn to get what I want here or what I was going for? Or is this a total redirection to something that actually better for me? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and as I personally say all the time, like this is not about like positive what's the word? This isn't about trying to be
positive
positive all the
psychology.
time. Not positive psychology,
Oh,
but like
toxic
toxic
positivity. Yeah.
positivity. Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. This is not about this because rejection does hurt. That is not up for debate. But there is a difference between going through this and understanding, ugh, that hurt. I was ghosted, or shoot, I really wanted that job, and then being able to take a step back and say, okay, what's in this for me? And quite frankly, especially in a job situation, you may not know what's for you until you get that next job and you're like, phew, I'm so glad I didn't get that first
So
job, you
true.
know. But it
Yes.
really starts from a place of really basic, possibly reconfirming your worst fear, which is that you're not enough.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Wait. We talk about this a lot and we see this a lot in all humans. Like if you're having a human experience, most likely, especially women, but I think men too, they
Oh,
suffer
sure.
from not feeling enough, sometimes feeling too much, which is just another way of feeling you're not right for something.
Mm,
And that hurts. And it's exactly why it hurts so hard, because for so many of us, it's just like, if I were more this or more
hmm.
that, more likable, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. If I was more accomplished, more beautiful, more
Yeah.
likable, all those things.
Yeah.
And that's, that goes back to one of our favorite questions. Is that true? The reality of it is
Mhm.
you don't know. And if it was about like if I was more accomplished, more beautiful, more likable, then is that a person, a job, a community you even want to be in? You don't want to come in from a place of less than to begin with.
Right, right. And you live in LA and your daughter's in the showbiz, and like that is
Yep.
something we're so aware of. Like I don't think we appreciate that enough, how much rejection is so a part of that world as people grow. And you always hear the most wise, more seasoned actors say, like, you just start to learn like there's a fit. It has nothing to do with you personally. It's all a projection of the person who's creating it. But oh, it still hurts. Like and also just to your point about things being true, these stories we tell ourselves, it reminds me again of our training, which is there's more pain from the story we're telling ourselves
Mm.
by like the interpretation of what we're telling ourselves about what happened than what's happening. There's a fact. You didn't get the part. But like the pain comes from I'm not enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't the right, whatever. Um, there's so many successful women we want to highlight, just for fun because people love these people and people don't always see like what they went through and all the ways they failed to get there. But Mindy Kaling, we all love her. She's such a talented writer, producer, actor, comedian. She was rejected by SNL.
I know, that's
Oprah,
crazy.
Oprah was told she's too emotional for the news, right? Reese Witherspoon was advised not to create stories centered on women. All of them, and so many more people turned those no's into, oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. I feel like
They
that
like,
now they're doing like the little raise of the finger.
yeah, hold my beer.
Yeah, right. Totally. Totally. And then like one of my favorites, Quentin Bronson. Quinta Bronson,
I
I
know.
love her. And she just didn't wait for someone to give her a green light. She built her own lane. Jennifer Hudson, oh my God, gets no one watched that season of American Idol and didn't think she should win. She was phenomenal. She didn't. I think she came in fourth. She wasn't even in the top three, but she has an Oscar now. She has her own
Oh,
television show. She has her own brand. I mean, yes, snaps to that.
you are making me think of this. I haven't talked to you about it because you don't watch it, but Griffin and I do. But this recent season of The Voice, like
Mm.
unbelievable how it ended up. It's felt so unfair, and I hope all five of those people who ended up in the end, like I hope that this isn't, like this isn't a rejection for them. I don't understand how the live votes work, but it went exactly the opposite as how I thought it should go. And I'm
Oh,
hoping,
wow.
especially those two young women, I hope that this is just launching them into their careers because
And of course, there's
frustration.
there's the men too, right? Like the
Oh,
famous Michael
sure.
Jordan didn't make his
Oh, yeah.
was it his high school or his basketball or his college? I think
I
his
think he
first
didn't make
college team.
varsity in high school or
Yeah, I
something
think
like
that's
that.
right. Because then
Yeah.
he went on to
Yeah.
UNC and the Bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's and these are just the names we know. There are so many people that aren't famous, but are also incredibly successful who I'm sure had their feelings about rejections they've had in the past and still kept going forward. And
Okay.
there's the gold.
That's the point, right? It's not whether you're ever rejected, it's what you do with it. I've always said this to my family about mistakes, and I think it's also true about rejections. That doesn't define you, it's how you
Right.
respond to it. It does.
Yep. Yeah. So what if it isn't something to avoid? Because we're not gonna. We're all gonna get rejected at some point, but something to expect. And I don't mean that from a fatalistic standpoint either, right? Like, but just know in life there are gonna be times where you don't get what you want. So expect that, and when the time comes, embrace it and see what you can do with it.
Mm, yeah, I love that. I love that in coaching, back to this idea that there's something to learn, that there's always feedback. That's drawn from NLP, that we've talked about that a lot, neurolinguistic programming. That's been a game changer for me. And we'll talk about this in an upcoming episode. Like it all comes into our emotional regulation, how we respond to things, how, if you can identify with the feeling of I didn't get invited to this or I didn't get chosen for this, and you just went into a deep dark place about it, or you just kind of really retreated, stopped trying, didn't go for the next thing, or just kind of really went into a rejection spiral. You're not alone. That everybody's had that
Hmm.
experience. Some of the most confident people, you never guess they've had that too, and yet like that is what we're meant to grow from and not do every time. We're meant to like, oh, okay, as coaches, you and I both will be like, there's a surefire way to, not learn from this and succeed ever is to let this be the end. Like
Million
there's a
percent.
choice you have to make. You either respond to this by learning and adjusting, or you let this define you. In the Malcolm Gladwell's book, which I think we'll mention in a minute, but like there's like the difference between John McEnroe and Pete Sampras. There's a lot of great, like, look at two
Mm.
famous people, or Lee Iacocca versus Steve Jobs, right? Like, whether you take something as a fail and let it, let it be the beginning of the end of what you were trying, or as a jumping off point, is like, that's the invitation here. And that's the game changer for me. Every single time I think I'm doing something that isn't working, I'm given that choice. Like,
Mm.
well, I'm not good at that. Forget that. I'm never trying that again. Or, okay, there's got to be another way to learn how to do this better.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's funny as you were talking, I was thinking when you were talking about not being invited, there is this whole new layer of social media. Yeah, especially I don't know, I assume everybody feels this, but we certainly know it for the younger generations who are watching people on social media go out and have parties, go out and do things, and they're like, why wasn't I invited? And so, the story begins right away, right? Well, I was never invited. I was na la la.
Right.
And
They didn't
again,
want me.
they didn't want me. Yeah, they don't want me as a friend, and that hurts a lot. Um, and then there's just something there that makes me think, okay, well, there's the Mel Robbins book, right? There's the let them piece of this. Like, you don't know why they did or didn't invite you to some things. I know I've been in situations where, like, maybe one of my kids have wanted to have a party, and there have been people they've chosen not to invite, not because they don't like them, but when they look at the grand scheme of who's coming, it's like, oh, that might not work. And granted, they maybe shouldn't make that decision for somebody, but there can be lots going on behind the scenes with jobs, with, friendships, whatever, that you don't know the facts behind it. So jumping to a
Yeah.
conclusion that it's you, ugh,
Yeah.
yikes.
Yeah. It's
Fair,
tough.
but
And
it's tough.
yeah, I do think we can look at anything that's unpleasant that makes us want to hide in under a blanket as like, I this is an invitation to build resilience. Like, what do I
Mm,
ultimately want? I ultimately want to succeed at something. I also want to be able to sustain these hits, these low points with more resilience and less suffering, right? So
yeah,
and I mean, that may not be people's outright goal. Certainly, someone in their teens isn't thinking that way.
for
But
sure.
when I look back at it, I see, like, over time, that's the gift
Yeah.
of having more than one. This happened more than one time. Is like, okay, like, the opportunity to build resilience to it and focus on what you can work towards or what you can learn is really, really going to propel you in the direction of success.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you and I both have coached so many women who were afraid to take up space because of past rejection. And when and that's again fair. We're not trying to be like, "Oh, buck up, little soldier." But when we've also seen when they then put themselves out there again with more clarity, with more resilience, they've discovered really what's meant for them, which is huge.
Yeah. And I just love the idea that it's a divine rerouting, right?
Mm.
Like, the amount of things you and I've discussed here about the road not taken, or the choices we made, but the things that we thought we wanted so bad, like you being a cheerleader, or like me wanting to date someone, or like or a job that, like, and then we find out later, like, oh, that would have been horrible for me, or I was really protected on that one, like, or I dodged the bullet, or just like you said, some, like, just like in your case, like, it brought you into something you didn't even know for yourself. My niece is a great example of that. I don't, you'll have to tell me if I've mentioned it here before. Sorry, I'm gonna do it again if I have, but
It's the things we know. We can
she
talk about whatever we want.
she among many reasons, including that I'd gone there for grad school, was really, really interested in Vanderbilt, that she
Mm,
did early decision,
mm.
and she didn't get it. They didn't accept her, and it was devastating for her 17-year-old, 18-year-old self. Like, devastating. Like, what, I think it was, she was 17 when she got rejected, and she didn't know what she was going to do. She started applying to a bunch of UC schools and got in. And my brother, who had gone through with my nephew to look at all those Ivy League schools, said, I would try Harvard. You never know. Your application could get in front of the right person. She was like, Dad, I didn't get into Vanderbilt. I won't get it there. And, she was getting other rejections too. And he really pushed it with her, which is good because she likes to joke also that when she took the two to look at schools, he was like, having Steven focus on the Ivy League schools. And she's like, what about me?
Very
So it's kind
fair.
of fun that he also gets the credit for really pushing her to do it. She got into
Yeah.
Harvard. She
Yeah.
would have never had that experience had she gotten, like Vanderbilt rejecting her opened up this whole new world of, okay, where do I go next? And all of the schools I mentioned are all wonderful, and you're lucky to get into any school. But that ended up being where she went, and how exciting for her that she got that opportunity. Because now she's living in Brazil, and all the things, all the ways that she ended up there came through something she never saw for herself. And so I always love that story. And I love to tell young people that, like, just when you think everything you imagine for yourself is cut off, actually way more doors just got open for you because you were only thinking of that one thing.
Yeah, and I don't think I've told this story before, and you had not told that story, BT
Mhm.
Dubs. But that when if I mean, I think you and I probably both have a rejection story we can share personally as well, but your that story makes me think of Charlotte in that we thought in 2017 that she would get put on an Irish dance team that would go to Worlds in Dublin. And so we had saved up a ton of money to do that. And she didn't get put on. And, in that instance, it hurt, but it was because she was the youngest of all the dancers. And there were other dancers who were older than her that they wanted to give the opportunity to. And at the time, we thought, oh, well, there'll be another opportunity for her to be on the Dawn. But lo and behold, we took that money and we came to LA for our second trip. And on that trip, Darren got hired at a role out here, which prompted us to move out here. So, yes, the cheerleader story is interesting because it meant I ended up meeting Darren. But I also
Mhm.
think of that LA story all the time. I don't think Darren would have changed jobs in Chicago. We would not have thought of LA. But because we were coming out here anyway, and he knew his role was ending in Chicago, I wouldn't even say through a Hail Mary, he just put out an ask to a client out here and said, do you know anybody that might be hiring or thinking about moving out here? Had a lunch conversation, and the guy hired him on the spot. I truly do not think we would be in LA because our other plan had been to move in 2020. We would have not moved in
Mm.
2020. So while that's not directly, and I guess I was going to say it's not directly related to Charlotte, but it is because had she stayed in Chicago, she would have continued to Irish dance and we would have loved it. I miss Irish dance. But what she's doing now in acting and her band and singing, also so fun. And we would have never gone down that path in Chicago. Never. So, yeah, and again, this goes back to you may not know. We're not asking you to figure out what's in it for you right out of the gate. You may not know for
Right.
years what's in it for you. But I think if you're in a moment of rejection and you can take a step back, pour a glass of wine and
Yeah.
look back on other times you were rejected and what came out of that, it can be the thing that reminds you, oh, I'll get through this too. Oh, there's gonna be something else that I'm now gonna look back on this rejection and again be like, phew.
Yeah, perspective is so huge when you can rise above it and see, like, oh yeah, I've been
Might take
actually been
years.
here before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
might take years. Totally fine.
Oh.
Um, but again, so that's it, right? Like look back, but in the moment, it might not be that easy because it does open old wounds. It does.
Mm.
I mean, again, to do a Charlotte story, and you know this, her first heartbreak. Oh my God, the wounds it opened up for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. Like
right.
rejection totally opens up old wounds. It can become like this confirmation of the limiting belief that you're carrying.
That part is so tender.
I know.
Because if deep down you believe you're not wanted or you're too much, then rejection just feels like proof. And
Yeah.
we don't, again, another episode idea. Like we don't talk a lot here about what's in therapy and in coaching and in a lot of modalities, which is called shadow work, right?
Hmm.
People do physical and emotional work around that, but really, truly, the amount that you're suffering over something like this really is a sign that you get to love yourself a little more through it, and
Yeah.
really take care of whatever little one inside you just didn't get the attention you needed during one of those early hurts. And that's just common. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you had horrible, we all had human loving parents, and we're human. And so it's just an opportunity to go, oh, wow, ouch, what did I skip through that could just use a little more attention? And it doesn't mean perseverating in something painful and old, but it does, you know, give you this feeling of like, oh, this isn't proof that I deserve to be rejected. This is just familiar. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
It's
It may
familiar. It's an
be
old pain, an old belief.
right. It could be trauma with a capital T. It could be
Mhm.
just some traumatic experiences that you had growing up. We've all had them, but it does. It just, it like, it, and I think the thing that can throw people is because it sure as hell threw me with Charlotte and her first breakup, is it was a pilot light that I thought was dead and gone. And
Mm,
holy shit, did it just like click, just light that fucker right back up. So
wow.
I'm not talking about, again, I'm not necessarily talking, it can be big T trauma, but it could just be some traumatic things that you thought you dealt with, you did deal with, but you're getting re-triggered around. All
Yeah.
fair, all fair.
We're just, by the way, Lisa and I having an ongoing conversation as Gen X women about how many of us, and that's a lot of our listeners, not all, but how many of us really thought we had things handled by not letting things get to us so much, being tough. Like that's just such the brand of Gen X people. And we're realizing, oh no, it's there. And it flares up
Yeah,
when we least expect it. So be nice to yourself. I mean, because the other thing about shadow work is rejection can activate shame,
yeah,
right? And that's all part of that. These parts of ourselves we don't like, or these parts of ourselves that we think we're supposed to not like. So when that happens, we stop seeing the situation clearly, and it just be
yeah,
spirals into believing the story we're telling ourselves. And like we always say, that feels real. We're not telling you not to feel it or not to even pay attention to it, but just ask yourself all the time, is it true though? I
yeah,
get I get why it feels so familiar and why it feels so real, and that's why there's shame. But when you can like step back and say, okay, it's not necessarily true. I can't prove it's true. The shame starts to lift.
yeah. It is an actual separation, the event, the fact, right? I mean, it kind of reminds me, and maybe it's just because I was recently re-listening to our interview with Molly, and the whole shift technology. I mean, there could be some shift
Hmm.
that needs and forgiveness of yourself, right? But it's separating the event, which is the fact, from the meaning we are attaching to it, and
Hmm.
that meaning of, oh, I'm not worthy, oh, I'm not beautiful, oh, I'm not whatever, all the
Not smart
birthrights.
enough.
I'm
I'm
not
not good
smart
enough.
enough. I'm not capable. I'm too much. I don't, people don't like me. It doesn't mean any of those things are true. The event means not now, not here, not this. And that is okay. But that separation and that ability, as you said, to take a step back, it is not easy.
Mm-mm. And I do, I appreciate that you pointed that out because that distinction helps me a lot. That
Yeah.
like that there's, you know, the event that's happening
Mm-hmm.
and what we're attaching to it. And it really is like, if I didn't have coach friends like you, or,
I know, right?
some experience with therapy or just life, like these years, I'm 56, there's some good that comes from that. The ability to be like, been here before. I think we've said this so many times. When I was in my 20s and 30s and I saw women our age now, I kind of wondered like, are they listening? Are they caring? They care and know so much. And they were just nodding and not they were just a lot more grounded and like, yep.
Well,
And
and also like I don't know about,
I feel you. I
well, that's just it. I
they
feel you, right? And you're right. I think it's funny because in times where I would have thought oh, they don't care. What they were really thinking, or at least what I think, is like, yeah, you got to go through it. Like I can
Exactly.
tell
Like
you that
this is part of your
this is
process.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can tell you that it's better on the other side. And I mean, I do think that's one of the lovely things, the feedback we've gotten from younger listeners is to hear it from us like, "Oh yeah, you will get through this." Doesn't keep you from going through it though. I mean, it is part of the process. It's how you get to the place where you have no fucks left to give.
Yeah. And it reminds me of expectations kill joy, right? It's
Yeah.
just, of course you had an expectation if you worked hard towards something, you didn't get it. I'm not saying don't expect it. You gotta picture it. You gotta move from there, right? And so that is hard.
And and to be fair, like again, I think about like if I was to think of a story for me, it's not that long ago. I mean, being one of the coaches chosen to move forward at the Health Coach Institute was a gut punch. No question. And where I had where I so there's the let them piece of it. Where I did the let me is I let them know I thought that was a complete bullshit move. But at the same time that I wanted to say, yeah, this hurts. I'm not going to go down without letting you know this. At the same time, I knew intuitively, while I didn't know what, I knew intuitively there was something else there. And I made the choice, okay, this hurts, but I'm going to build transformation for real. We had just started the pod. I was just really trying to focus on this gives me more time to do this. I don't know that you and I would have started our retreats had we both stayed at the Health Coach Institute. I don't think we would have had
Mm.
time, you know?
Yeah, maybe not.
So again, there's a lot of hypotheticals there, but rejection doesn't just happen in your 20s and in your 30s. It continues to
It's hard
happen.
to know because even those of us who stayed, like work was so much less. So,
Right, right, right. True,
it was
true.
like, I don't know, at that, like it is, I do know that, and I'm not belittling that as an experience because it was gut wrenching for everybody on all sides,
Oh yeah, no
especially. Yeah.
question.
And
Yeah, even
it
for the
was a
people that
little bit
stayed,
of
it was gut
like, you're
wrenching.
breaking up with me. I was going to break up with you.
Totally.
So
You're not firing me. I'm quitting.
it's just leave or
Which
be left
wasn't
kind
true.
of
I
thing.
wasn't quitting, but
And it just, yeah, it wasn't the same. It was just a slow petering out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So funny.
Yeah. I was thinking the most recent thing, I don't know that I even thought that it's rejection, but it definitely counts as that, is, in a group of friends from my kids' school. We're all like friends with different people from that school, like different teachers and stuff. And like I really do. I don't know if it's just like I'm kidding myself. Or I don't know that it hurt that bad, but I was really aware. Everyone was like, "Are you going to this woman who was a teacher to a lot of our kids? Are you going to this gathering she's having?" And I was like, "Oh no, I don't know anything about it." My response wasn't like, "I'm not like she doesn't like me." I was like, "Fine, people are close to different people. We don't even live
Yeah.
in the same part of town. That's fine." My response was interesting though, and it is another part of my shadow work, or the shame that comes up for me, is like, I hope I didn't ever do anything to offend her.
Totally. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
she doesn't have to invite me. I don't have to be invited to everything. I think we've discussed, like, I don't suffer from FOMO, but it did make me go, God, I hope I wasn't I hope that
Totally.
wasn't something I ever did to, like, be a jerk or something. It was just funny that that was my response instead of like, I feel left down. I'm gonna,
But I
because he
think that
doesn't
is
have
a
to invite me.
response
It's
to
okay if
rejection.
we're not. Yeah, it is a response. It's like to look
Yeah.
inward and assume you did something wrong.
Yep. Yeah, we haven't
Yeah,
mentioned that. We've been talking about I'm not enough. I'm not they don't like me, but that's an absolute. If you're thinking, well, none of those land, but then you just heard, did I do something wrong? Like to turn it inwards and make that assumption.
right.
I mean,
Because
maybe
then
you
you're
did, but
in constant, like, self-critical mode, which I
correct.
can be. I work on this, but I can be because of the way my life can be, right? I can be really impressive and think of everything and coordinate stuff, the group gifts and all that, or it can be like, wait, what? I was supposed to put a baby picture in the yearbook, like, you know what I mean? And so
Feels very specific.
I often suffer from a fear just pulling a random example out. I often come from a fear that, I might be being rejected or left out because I'm a flake in people's eyes. And you and I know I'm not a flake, but like
Right.
if things are going on in our life where I can't catch up with email, personal email, I'm pretty good at the professional stuff, but and I miss out on something, I'm afraid I might hurt people's feelings. And it's
Yep.
like, God, I'm so sorry we were in a seizure mode. And I don't always want to throw that out there because then it feels like I'm using Griffin as an excuse. And it may not even be Griffin. It may just be that I'm catching up on sleep or we've got other stuff going on or family in town. But then I sit back and I remember I don't do that very often anymore. I'm giving that
Yeah.
as an example. We're all at this stage. We're all going through menopause and we're all like doing the best we can. And our adult kids come to town and swirl everything up and it's fun and exciting and it's all about them. And then I have to get back to stuff, it's
Yep.
just, I don't know. I'm human and if you're in my life and you put up with that, thank you.
I mean, here's the thing. Rejection is part of every brave woman's story, right? It is absolutely part of blazing new trails, of doing something that's never been done before, something that matters. It is no one escapes this life without some rejection. No question.
Right. I think, and it, again, back to that silly tangent I just made, but when you're living in alignment with your values, when you're doing the best you can and you're being kind to yourself, right? Rejection won't destroy you as much. You just like, look, wasn't for me, right? That's obviously like that's a learned, experienced response. Like it wasn't for me. It may hurt. That's gonna hurt. Hurt
Yep.
happens, but it's not gonna define you.
Yeah. And we do get to choose, right? Is it a moment of defeat? Are we going to drop our phone and then stomp all over it? Or is it a plot twist, which we
Yeah,
worked a whole lot on with people in Arizona in March?
I love that. I love this quote from Dita Von Teese, which, love pulling her out of thin air.
Of course.
That you can be the juiciest peach in the world, and there will still be someone who doesn't like peaches.
Yep.
And I think there's freedom in that. Like you're not for everyone. So that's okay. And we say this a lot. We learned this a lot when we're like putting ourselves out there, building a business, and we have taught this to so many people. If you get rejection, it means people are noticing you and they're paying attention to you and you're finding it like that's okay. You're not for them. So they're like clearing the path to the people that do need you and that are going to respond. So rejection is a sign that you're doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. You're right. If you're not getting rejected, then you're not doing something. That's exactly right. And so it can be part of your origin story, right? That thing that didn't work, that person who walked away, the job you didn't get, the relationship that fell apart. It's all part of your beautiful tapestry. It's all happening and shaping you.
I like that. I think there's beauty in owning your no's,
Yeah.
they make your yeses that much more powerful. So
Mm.
like when you are chosen for something or you are tapped for something or you're asked to do something, I think give it as much attention as you do the rejections and like
Yep.
you're gonna feel a huge shift.
I think that's really important. Let's underscore that because human nature is to focus on what's not going well. You and I had a big old conversation pre-taping about this.
Oh
And
yeah.
you should celebrate extensively when you get the yes. You
Mm,
and I did that right before we got on this call. We were, and then I was like, "Can we, for a second, though, talk about this is going well, and this is going well, and this is going well?" Like you and I
yeah.
have had a lot of wins in the last few months, and we've had a lot of shit. And we tend to only talk, or not only, but we tend to talk about the shit a lot, you and I. And
Yeah.
it's coping mechanisms. I wouldn't change it for the world, but we these the good things that are happening to us and to the pod, we tend to just be like, oh, okay, cool, cool.
No, it's true. Yeah, we've talked about this in different forms of different episodes, and just the two of us. And also that here's the thing: we don't live in the same town, and so we want to be friends to each other during the hard times. And so
Of
you're
course.
right. We could skip over the good stuff, but what we've talked about here a lot is how women demur and they play down
Yeah.
the selections, the promotions, the wins, the successes, we're doing our best, hopefully you're noticing, to bring on women and celebrate that shit and
Yeah.
promote it, because there's just not enough of that, and we do too. We move too quickly through the celebration, if we even take time to celebrate at all, and the accomplishments, to be like, oh, we haven't done this yet, we could be doing this more.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it is a it's a great moment to remember that all wraps up in this. If we're talking about the, like, what I love, Byron Katie's 4 questions, right?
Mm.
What has happened, or what is the thought you're having? Is it true?
Hmm.
But then the piece that I like that reminds me of this is, how do I respond when I'm believing it? What's the attention you're giving it, right? Like, when if you were to take all the attention and the, like, just energy that goes into responding to a rejection, try to do that the next time you get the opposite of the rejection, the selection.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. So, if rejection has knocked you down lately or ever, or is on the precipice of it, we hope this, episode helps you stand back up with a new perspective. You've got some books you want to recommend for people who might be going through rejection.
I do. There's one called, Go for No. It's by Richard Fenton and Andrea Waltz. It flips the script. Instead of leaning, excuse me, my mouth isn't working. Instead of fearing no, you look for it, you go for it, you start welcoming it, because the no brings you closer to clarity. And I think the point in that, it's probably a little bit of a salesy kind of strategy when you're developing that part of you that needs to go out and practice. But truly, you'll be good at every kind of negotiation and conversation if you're not afraid of it, right? And like, I'm actually just going to use this as practice to share what it is I'm offering, or tell people about something, and go for things
Yep.
and see how many rejections you can get, because in that effort you're going to get really good at those conversations, and it's going to get you quicker to a yes.
Yeah, I do think we mentioned this on the when we recorded it the first time, but I remember Jiajing, we saw a video again through training at the Health Coach Institute where he actively went out to get 100 no's. And I think that I'm saying the right guy, right? Jiajing? Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I was
Judging.
like
Yeah.
having a
I've
second. I
just
was
looked
like,
it up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And even at the face of that, and I was well into my practice at this point. I had transformation for real for a while. And I remember hearing that and watching that video and even be like, what? But you do, I think I don't want to say you build a thick skin, but I think when you start to understand as you get no's that it isn't about you, right? And so I thought you're right. That also was a sort of a sales training, so to speak, but it gets you really comfortable with, okay, well, that's still a space I've got open for somebody who's a hell yes. You know what I mean? And so it did help me immensely when I'm working, talking to a potential new client. If they can't do it, I'm like, okay, that's fine. They're not this is not the right time for them, which means it's not the right time for us. So that piece of it really has helped immensely. Um, Another great one, classic, Stories of Resilience, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She talks about creative rejection. So for those artists and creatives out there, um, even as you're getting, going back to the idea of like Charlotte's not at the point yet where she's out actively auditioning, but there will be no's. There's no question. And how do you show up anyway? How do you keep going after that next gallery showing, that next acting part, that next time to be on The Voice, whatever it might be?
Mm. Of course, Graham wants to do it.
I
So fun.
know.
About Elizabeth Gilbert, I bet it was about this book, but I remember a long time ago seeing a snippet of a conversation that was recorded between she and Brene Brown about, because Brene Brown talks a lot about like shame and also
Yep.
responding to critics and all that. And Elizabeth Gilbert's like, I never understood like the brutal honesty thing, or like, I'm really big into concentric circles of reveal. Go to your favorite people first, like your lover, your friends, and and show them your work and know that they're going to be like, this is awesome and you're pretty, and then like it's like build it up and then go to the next circle of people until you're ready for the people to be like, I don't like it. Like once you get to that rejection, you really built yourself up by like, not telling people to lie to you, but having people who love you really like pour into your work.
You know who does this beautifully? A past guest, Tressa. She always talks when she's trying to, she's a mortgage broker. So, we all know how mortgages and interest rates and things have been fluctuating over the past few years. So she often goes when she's trying to do reach outs, she's going to have to do some cold calling or talking to people she doesn't know. So she starts by calling someone she calls a fan just to get a little like oomph, a little boost. And then she could like, she'll take one like fan, she'll call one or two fans, and then she'll move on and call 3 or 4 cold calls, but she's already feeling so like pumped up from the fans and what the fans are telling her about. She's
Yes.
probably actively asking them, do they need a refinance? Are they looking to buy a new home?
Yeah.
And the answer may still be no, but it's going to be like, oh, we're not right now, but I'll be damned. When we're ready, Tressa, we're coming after you. You know
Mm,
what I mean? And that's just enough of like a boost. So I love
yeah.
the idea of concentric circles. That is awesome. So good.
And also, that just made me think like, we have a lot of really great from when we worked at HCI, like all these great positive reviews. I don't, and
Yeah.
we've collected them from our own clients and just other nice things. Like I love saving like beautiful thank you notes. And so
Yeah.
I think whether it's electronically or physically, right? Like have something you can tap into that like gives you
Raves.
really specific reminders of what you're good at and what you've contributed. I think could also really help. One other book I don't want to forget to mention is The Light Maker's Manifesto. I haven't read it in a really long time, but Karen Walrond it's just a beautiful work on this, reminding you we can live with integrity and hope even when we're faced with disappointment. And I think it's a lot about just deciding, like making a decision about no matter what, i'm I'm living a beautiful life.
Mm.
And so like that's going to have its ups and downs, but like if I'm committed to that no matter what, like what's going to always ground me and bring me back there in the face of disappointment.
Oh, I love that. A beautiful life. Gosh. Oh, so good. So if you've been rejected lately, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It just means something better is coming.
Or that you're being asked to pivot.
Add that.
Pivot, not quit, just hold your worth a little more tightly.
Yeah, you're not broken. You're becoming. Mm.
So it's time for a song, and we did not like our choices, and as we often do, came up with one last minute
We're like,
silly
whoa, whoa,
song.
whoa. I don't want either of
Don't
these.
like it.
Plus, we'd
Don't like
already
either.
used
Yeah.
them. So,
Yes.
um, and then as soon as, so what we do, FYI, if we haven't automatically come up with one, we just go in and be like, best songs about. And this one came up. Um, and I think it's perfect. It's Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush, Don't Give Up.
Mm.
And it says, oops, I took a picture and let me pull it up here. Here we go. You have no reason to be ashamed. Don't give up. You still have us. Don't give up now. We're proud of who you are. Don't give up. You know it's never been easy. Don't give up because I believe there's a place where we belong.
Oh,
Sometimes
that's
when I
actually
quote,
perfect.
it's so good. And sometimes when we quote those, I can like do it in the cadence. You cannot do Kate Bush's cadence. Her voice and the way she sings is so unique to her
I
that it's like
know.
there's just no way to do
You
her
would sound
cadence.
strange if you were like, don't give up.
Okay. Don't give up. Yeah, no one wants to hear me
Yes.
try to sing Kate Bush. I am telling you that
Yeah.
right now.
Oh, that was good. I'm glad we changed it.
Me too.
So if you are listening and you're navigating some form of rejection or something that feels like rejection, or you just are just ready to live with more positive, like more optimism or courage around it, we would love to support you.
Yeah, so consider working with us as coaches or attending our upcoming retreats. Our next one is in Chicago in October. If you're ready to step into your next chapter with clarity and heart, check out the show notes for more.
And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone else who might need to hear it. We're all rewriting our old stories together.
Mm. Thanks for being with us. Until next time.
Bye.